Hello, welcome back to LFP Farm Life. I'm Carrie Lee. I'm so happy you decided to join me for our Azure pickup. We did mostly a pantry stock up with a little bit of a freezer stock up as well. So let's go ahead and see what we have gotten today. So we have gotten 5 pounds of the garden green peas, and then we've also gotten some frozen sweet corn, also in the 5-pound quantity. And I have finally been able to get the 5-pound quantity of the frozen mangoes. I have been trying to get these items for months now, but they have just been out of stock, I would say probably the last 4 months. I'm just so happy that I've been able to get those. And whenever I have a little bit of time, I'm going to take each one of these 3 boxes and I'm going to break them down into probably gallon-sized containers. And I will keep one of them upstairs in my kitchen refrigerator, and I'm going to keep the other downstairs in my chest freezer. That way it will just be a little bit easier to keep my freezers a little bit more organized rather than in the boxes that they came from Azure. Even though everything's really nicely marked, what I really do like is that they're lovely with the way that they're labeled, and they also have all of the statistics and everything on the boxes. And then in the refrigerator section, I have picked up some 5-pound cheeses. Last month, the Pepper Jack organic cheese was out of stock, but I was able to get it this month. Unfortunately, the price did go up, I think almost $2 a pound from last month to this month. But Pepper Jack is probably one of my absolute favorite cheeses. I love it on just about any sort of beef dish, especially burgers or a pub burger type thing that you just put with like a romaine lettuce instead of using a bun. That is absolutely delicious. And then the second cheese that we have picked up is the low moisture whole milk mozzarella. Neither one of these cheeses are a raw cheese. They're just a standard cheese. Both of them are in the 5-pound quantities. And then in the fresh produce, I have picked up 38 pounds of the organic grapefruits. And I believe it's a quantity of maybe 40 grapefruits. And I plan on doing canning projects with both of these. I'm the only one in the house that enjoys grapefruit. The other half actually cannot stand them. So I am quite happy to mowing down on these all through the winter. So that I am perfectly happy to be doing that. I think what I'm going to be doing is mostly grapefruit in a syrup, and then I'm going to do grapefruit probably in a honey syrup, and I may possibly do a grapefruit marmalade. I'm not really sure. I'm not a huge marmalade fan, but I might try it this time. And then for our pantry items, because I am doing some canning, I did pick up 25 pounds of the organic cane sugar. Last year, I did do some canning with our sugar substitute, and it did work really, really well. And it did keep just fine while it was sealed. And it kept, say, for instance, the cherries in the refrigerator, anything that we made with cherries in the fridge. It kept it fresh for approximately 3 weeks before it started to go off. But the one thing I did notice that I did not like with anything that was preserved with the sugar substitute, especially with fresh fruit, is I would say probably the first 3 months, the flavor of the fruit was exactly just like it was the day that you preserved it. But 3 months later, all the sweetness of the fresh fruit seemed to have disappeared, and it got a little bit of a bland, almost bitter flavor afterwards. That I did not care for whatsoever. And then to store the cane sugar in the 25-pound quantity, because I used to always buy my sugars and flours in 50-pound quantities when we lived in the city. But because I stopped doing that, I repurposed the containers to store some of the supplements for the horses. So what I decided to do was pick up some of the food safe buckets with the gamma lids so that they spin right off, so that they're easier to get into. All you've got to do is just, spin the center, and then you can easily get in. You can store everything right in there, and I'm going to just store this in my pantry. and then just get what I need right out of there. And then I'm just probably going to label it either with my Cricut or maybe for the time being just, maybe with some masking tape and write what it is. And then I am restocking my raw sugar. And then they did have the the wildflower / berry raw honey on special. So I picked up the 12-pound or the gallon size. And I believe it was on special for either 32 for the gallon or 35 for the gallon. And I think what I might do is break this down and store it in, I think maybe pint rather than quart jars. What I'm finding in the 3-pound quantities is if I'm using it in my tea, as you get to the lower amounts when you're almost out, you get honey all over your hands if you're using like a teaspoon or even a tablespoon to get out just a little bit of honey for a recipe or to put into your teacup. So I'm not a real big fan of that. So I think I'm going to put some of this into the pint jars to store it for easier usage. And then I am low on some of my seasonings. So we needed to get onion powder. So I got the 1 pound of that. And then the garlic granules that I was missing from my last order, I had just picked up for this order. So we also got a pound of that. And then I also had gotten a pound of the poultry seasoning, which is just a combination of sage, savory, thyme, and black pepper. And then there's a couple of other items that I always throw in when I'm doing, say, for instance, a baked chicken. So I'll still be adding a little bit of that. But at least it will save me a little bit, or especially if I'm going to be doing a bone broth or something like that. So it's a nice, quick, easy way to do a simple poultry seasoning if you don't feel like dragging out everything, like if you're just going to do a chicken breast or something for a salad. So I thought that was kind of a nice little addition. And then I needed to stock up on my einkorn flour. And interestingly enough, the 20-pound bag as a single bag was actually more expensive per ounce than it would have been if I bought the case of the 2-pound little bags. So, being the frugal individual that I am, I went ahead and just bought the case of the 2-pound bags, which is actually going to be easier for me to store because I can just slide it on a shelf and push it into one of the corner locations of my pantry. And this little 2-pound bag will fit into the flour container that I'm storing my einkorn right now. Super easy. So it actually is working out really, really well rather than scooping out of, say, a bag the size of the cane sugar or getting another gamma lid bucket and then scooping out to store into the smaller containers. So in the end, this is actually working out really well for me. So I'm quite happy about that. So pretty much that is everything that I have gotten from my latest Azure pickup. I am really enjoying the convenience of having such high quality, mostly organic type items that is able to be ordered all at one time in a larger bulk availability in a small town at my fingertips, where I can adjust my order throughout the month and plan meals and fill my freezer in such an easy to order type of atmosphere. So I'd really like to know what you guys are ordering and what you're doing with your Azure type of things. I was going to order some pears, but after I took a look at my total, I needed to narrow down my order just a little bit, because with some of the larger quantities, that order did get up there just a little. So I hope everybody is enjoying their afternoon, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to join me on my Azure pickup. It really means a great deal. And if you've enjoyed this video, I hope that you like it, share it, and subscribe to our channel. And I hope you're going to enjoy some of the future videos where we're going to be using some of this lovely produce and great food in future videos. Thank you very much for your time. And I'll see you again on LFP Farm Life. We are going to use the Ball's 1932 canning book in today's canning. I absolutely love old canning recipes and old recipes in general. And we're going to use the Azure's wonderful produce, which were the grapefruit. And it's a cold pack recipe where we're just going to cut off these skins and get the fruit from the outside, place it in the jars, and we're going to remove all of the white pith and everything that we can get and remove all of this, put them in the jars. And as you can see, I'm just placing them in the jars. I'm very careful to make sure that all of the white bits are off of all of the fruit and that I am only getting the very sweet and juicy segments, and that there is absolutely no pith or any bits of white pith or any of the exterior bits of the rind of the grapefruit whatsoever left on the fruit. And you just want to fill up to 1 inch of headspace. You'll notice that I left a little bit more than that in my jars because when I do the grapefruit, I like to have a little bit more of the sweetened juice that we add. And that's just how I personally enjoy my grapefruit. And with my grapefruit, it does not last very long in my house, which is one of the reasons that I am canning in one quart rather than pint quantities, because you can also can your grapefruit or any of your fruits in pints rather than quarts or half pints if that suits your needs a little bit better than the quarts. And here we're adding 2 tablespoons of sugar directly into the cans, into the jars, and now we're topping with hot boiling water. And I'm just debubbling to make sure that the liquid goes all the way down. And I want to make sure that it's going to get all the way down, and I will refill any jars. I want to make sure that it's going to get all the way down, and I will refill any jars that the water isn't in. And I am wiping down the rims to make sure that my lids are going to seal tightly. And I'm just putting my lids on hand tight here so that will reduce the siphoning. And here is the lovely juice at the end.